It's getting set up here. So let me leave this here. Yo, assalamu alaikum. 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏 kontrana. Kabi time also the banter, nothing to do, so someone remember I'm a mauler. You can get on it with it today. Now normally Sundays in Canada, but let me know and I'll come away because the heat keeps coming on. Yo, so it's recorded so people can watch it later. But 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 basically is to get some perspectives. I think it's going to be a heavy mix of English in this because of the data thing, so ma translate, ma jot down, so excuse me for that. But 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 perspectives matter. So nimman kacha na Nigeria jernyal yita ni nyola ngame hamenta sotol abekala sonko ni wacha kensamolti nyosa ba kensamo because mampare ka nyola moy kacha du yaje nyola moy wala ni nyata yi. So when you don't understand my perspective and I don't understand your perspective, we're just arguing for nothing, wasting each other's time. And understanding my perspective does not mean that you have to accept it or even respect it. You just need to understand why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, why I'm acting the way I'm acting, why I believe what I believe. You just need to understand. That's just the bottom line, the baseline. That's not negotiable. In order for us to engage in anything meaningful, you need to understand that first and foremost. You can, be baffled by it, you can be shocked by it, whatever. But if you don't understand that, or you're not willing to accept that or to understand that, then we're not going to have a dialogue. So all them batandi. Basically, mampare ka nyola moy, mona la mira nya la mitani la mira nya, ande ka me mira wala correct ade me mira mo correct. Ayatra me ata londo wasiloge tamo imam fenna fa amor. So it's all following up on this 𝒂𝒊𝒏 poll. Polling data basically can be interpreted anyway, to a large extent. Anybody can use it to their disadvantage, to the disadvantage of their opponents, and then to their own advantage, or just dismiss it entirely if they cannot spin it. But a few things stand out when it comes to the data that we saw. So understanding that and applying it is what we are going to try to do here, and then on top of that, move on to other topics that are being discussed in the social media environment, aka coalition or no coalition. So first things first. So covering 𝒂𝒊𝒏 in poll finded out basically what they were talking about. When it comes to the numbers, there's so many different variables there. But for the purpose of this discussion, we're just going to keep it, very limited. So basically, number one, no matter how you interpret the data, you understand incumbency. When somebody is the incumbent president, they always have more advantage than the rest because they have more resources at their disposal, number one. They have a bigger bully pulpit. So many variables go in favor of the incumbency. So what the poll shows is basically nothing new in that regard. Number one, if somebody has incumbency, they have a bigger advantage than everybody else. That's a fact. Nobody's going to argue with that. Nobody wants to argue with that. That the poll reflects that too. Number two, it also shows that a unified opposition has a bigger chance, a better chance of unseating Barrow. Nobody is arguing that. Number 3, Barrow is unpopular. That too is a fact. When you look at the numbers, you can say Barrow compared to candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, you can do that. But in overall assessment of Barrow's performance when it comes to economy, when it comes to corruption and people's livelihood, he is unpopular. That's not comparing him to anybody else. It's just saying, is he popular or not popular based on his policies? He is unpopular. That also is a fact. Number 4, is the country headed in the right direction? Majority say it's not. That's also a fact. So however you slice and dice it, that is established based on the survey as it stands today when they revealed it. And number 5, among the groups of people who are all opposed to Barrow as entities, UDP commands the largest number of people who share their platform. Basically, the biggest opposition in the country is UDP. That also is established. I've seen people coming out trying to dismiss it as, oh, when this survey was done, UMC was like a few weeks old. UDP was formed in August 1996, September 1996, we went to elections, they are over 30%, but that's, by the way. And then on top of that, when we had all this noise about, oh, there's popularity context, the polls show that, Talib is more popular than Dabo. That poll was done in August of 2025. September, October, November, this other separate poll. So basically, like I said at the beginning, anybody can interpret data anyhow they want. But we all do it. When it favors, UDP, we run with it. When it doesn't favor, we're like, oh yeah, that's just politics, So people playing politics with numbers. That's fine. We understand that. But essentially what that polling is showing, these are the facts. How do we translate that into what we're talking about now, which is this whole talk about coalition? Every election cycle is the same thing. Let's build a coalition, let's build a coalition, let's build a coalition, but nobody talks about the principles of the coalition. All we care about is coalition. That's what everybody is talking about from A to Z. Coalition or not, how are we going to manage it so that more bail after men and base as already? You're not never Barrow opposed. Monkava jealous. Why? Because he can go Momo being cool cake by from Kunkel and Nafani knowledge and Palace Sotology. Ninja the coalition or what is in there for me. But nobody's talking about what is in there for the country or what is in it for the country. So rather than fixating on who should lead the coalition, who should not lead the coalition, what would the coalition seek to achieve? We cannot go through this every election cycle. Coalition, what about the president? What about having a system where nobody can lead unless you have absolute majority, 50+1? Who stands in the way of that? Adama Barrow. He doesn't want that new constitution passed. He doesn't want term limits. Okay, even 100 times of a lowland. So that's why we are in this predicament. And then it baffles people. Many go, well, like a fintech we need system change, we need new constitution, we need this, we need that, we need this, we need that. But then the only obstacle to that, and you know it, is Adama Barrow. But then they start making justifications for why he should stay in power. And then start complaining about why. So essentially, in Talamiro United, there's no sincerity. Like Diamo is, talk is cheap. We can all talk. But when it comes to the doing, you have a very few sincere people when that is the case. So the fact of the matter is, coalition building is necessary. Everybody who goes into elections, register a political party, they have this conviction that if we appeal to the people, we can win. Otherwise, why spend $1 million, dollars or whatever to register a political party? When you, in your heart, you think, okay, I cannot win. Unless Yake as an investment, I'll go into the political space, make a lot of noise, and then eventually side with Barrow, and then I can get my cut. It's my essentially messy fact. Maybe that's the thing. But in my rational mind, I'm thinking, anybody putting themselves forward as a Falamban, Doelamban, UDP, this is what they expect. I have reasonable policies and agenda items. They will embrace me and vote for me, and and then I can win. That's everybody's conviction in a political party. It's not being big-headed, it's not being arrogant. That's everybody's hope. Otherwise, why form a political party? That is the big question. Are you doing it because you want to, cash in later on? Or are you doing it because you're convinced or you can bring the change that you're talking about? So because we can do it, that's not arrogance. That's because that's what a natural order of things will say. I formed a political party because I expect I can win. So that being the case, everybody in the game thinks that they can win. But we know in Africa, incumbency favors the incumbent when it comes to politics. That's a fact. So every strategy we're talking about is how to make that incumbency weak. It's not about, popularity contests here and there. Maybe to a certain extent it is too. For some people as well. So if that is the case, the problem now doesn't become, should we all unite and fight one person? The problem becomes, how do we unite? How? That is the issue. It's not about whether we should or should not. Everybody agrees that that is the case. DJ Sam, I told you So instead of dismissing polls, like I said, polls or 𝒂𝒄𝒏 or survey 𝒂𝒄𝒏, you want to run with it. Even, people do it individually on their Facebook timeline. Oh, I created a poll, who are you going to vote for? And then you list the names and then, your friends come and, they vote on that and then you run with it to Facebook. You see, this is how many people will vote for my candidate and the other candidate. Sometimes it can be, something as silly as that. Sometimes it can be more invested in, like Cyprus is doing and Gambia participates are doing. So basically this is a snapshot in time. Politics, a day is a long time, anything can change. So we don't dismiss it, because you should use it as a guide, because that's what data does. You use the data to guide you in the decisions you're making. I'm not popular right now, what do I need to change? I am very popular, how do I maintain that momentum? So we are at that point where some people look at it favorably, other people are making excuses for why it is not favorable to them. But ultimately, how do we move forward and unite our efforts in the, to build a coalition? And this is where I'm going to dive into it. Like, this is not an attack on anybody, but there are things happening on my side that I don't like. If I have the power, I will stop it. And there are things happening on the other side too that are not, not respectful, to say the least. So there's no one-sided, issue here. It's all over the place. But Nenko, we want to unite. And you pick a fight with somebody. And then what I do, I'll go take a screenshot of what I disagree with, put it on my wall, tag you, let's discuss. That's because I'm not picking a fight with you. I just disagree with what you say. So now I don't want my comments to be, swallowed up in the 100 comments on your page. So I bring it to my wall and tag you, and people appreciate that. So call them, tag them, this is what I think of you, and then move on. But UDP, many people who respect you, are respectable, who even stand in defense of you. For more, you are the sleeper cells and stuff like that. And then you go and find the dirtiest thing at the farthest end of Facebook, pull it up, even if it is fake profile, this is UDP. What about the regard to the people who are not like that? That is what riles people up and gets them angry. And then we all get into this mess where we cannot talk about any issues. If you have a beef with somebody, understandable, you fight your beef. Nobody is gonna get involved with that, because that's between you and whoever you try to pick a fight with. But you can then turn around and say, UDP, this. Since that press conference, when did you ever hear Mr. Dabo or any of the UDCP leadership say anything about any other political party? How long has the UDP and PDIs been in the same political environment? When do you hear them talk about each other? I made a blog post and I got pushed back on it because I said, what I'm observing is building a brand by making UDP look bad. True, you disagree. True, you lost faith. I'm not mad about that or any of, that stuff. Fine, you want to build something that you think is going to bring in change and is much better. Kudos to you. If it works, we achieve the goal of removing Barrow. That's what we all want. They have been open about it. If we replace Barrow with Halifa Sallah or PDOIS or GDC, we hit the reset button. That is what we care about. Where my opinions lie, what my belief is that UDP can do a better job, a much better job than everybody else. But right now, if people's appeal falls towards somebody else other than Adam Barrow, that's good enough for me because that is hitting the reset button so we can have change. And then, that person will come there with their own challenges. It's never going to be perfect. Even in this country, it's not. When they say the best, the biggest democracy in the world, it's not perfect here. Even their Declaration of Independence says it. We try to build a more perfect union. So there's no illusion for anybody who comes is going to make everything perfect. No, there'll still be flaws. We understand that. But this constant, incessant, attacking one another, focusing on things that are not issues, but personalities, is what drags everybody through the mud. And before you know it, December is here, and then we start pointing fingers. This is why, we failed. This is why we failed. That's why we failed. And nobody is going to agree. We failed. So why can't we just cut that out and focus on the real issues that matter so that we can get to where we need to get to as a country? That is the big question. We are never going to agree completely. Even people in the same camp, they are not going to agree. But ultimately, we need to spare or give space to each other. For the longest time, a lot of us have been just sitting down on the sidelines because or anything like that. No. But that's why I said perspectives matter. You need to understand the perspective of the people you're dealing with. You don't have to embrace it. You don't have to respect it. You don't have to accept it. But understand their perspective so that you can at least engage with them cordially without any misunderstanding. This will take me back to the days when we had all those discussions going on. Oh, 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏 and 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏. We were all in the same WhatsApp groups and messaging groups. The message we sent out then was pure and simple. Let this discussion die down. Don't push it. It is going to lead to bigger problems, which is the flag bearer thing. UDP's time for flag bearership has not come yet. It will come in the election year, which is this year. In fact, closer to the election. Don't force this. Don't push it. Nobody listened. What was the argument? Oh, Dabo is unwinnable. If you put a Mandinka there, he cannot win. This cannot be fixed again. It's now out in the public. Let people go ahead and do what they want to do. But what we want them is, you will not budge the UDP base. And what you're going to get is pushback. So let's see how much pushback you can take before this whole thing crumbled. It did not crumble. It did. That is exactly where we are right now again. Nobody is saying that coalitions are bad. We're saying, how do we build a more effective coalition, learning from the attempts that were made in the past, 2006, 2011, and 2016. How do we learn from that to build a better coalition? And then, bam, people coming out, UDP cannot lead that coalition. That's why we say, go build your coalition then. Because if UDP cannot lead it, they can just come there and be spectators. Why do you need them? Oh, we need the numbers because they have 25% of the opposition base. We need those numbers, but they can have no say in there. So basically what? Kill UDP and then we'll just take your people. That's what it sounds like. Whether you agree to it or not, whether you think it's an exaggeration, it doesn't matter what you think. That's what it sounds like to people on this side. So understand that perspective. Because people were in the UDP. When this whole flag bearer thing came, what happened? You watch the interviews on Kerfatu, on other media outlets. What were they saying? Oh, UDP problem about party okonal because Talib Kambije, Yankuba Kambije, Lamin Sane Kambije, Amadou Sane Kambije. Say, Mr. Dabu, you saw those interviews. All those camps were there. When I discuss on Talib Tambe. When UDP has processes, nobody touched on that. when it comes to the processes, I think we should make it fair. We think this process, if it goes A, B, or C, it will favor one person and not the rest. So we need to have an open process because we think it's time for the way you frame it. Come on, but no more nani lafta fongole ka fala sigal ya di ka. Ñun dol même mal la fi car la wol bi mëna fa. Ngko wala ka jatinya. So move from that to saying that if you put a Mandinka there, it will look like a, tribalism. Or if Mr. Dabo is put there again, he never won an election in the country. As if any election was ever fair in that country. And what do you think will happen? People will not resist. And exactly in all of Unko, UDP call the amount of respect they have for Dabo. If you want to go about it a certain way, you're going to lose them. And that's exactly what is happening. Instead of accepting that, they start calling us a cult. Yeah, I'm proud to be a part of a cult. Because I have my reasons for supporting the person I'm supporting. I know you have your reasons. That's why I respect it and I don't attack you. But if you fail to see my perspective, you're just going to keep falling into the same trap. And where does that take us? Who wins? Nobody. The people at the top continue to get rich, continue to do things the way they want to do it, abusing our rights, abusing our resources. We can do nothing about it. Why? Because we hate each other. But we don't want to admit it. So we'll be now we get into this coalition discussion of an because how do you reconcile that? Already people know. The people, I'm not saying that UMC is leading coalition talks or anything, but if any coalition is coming, they're going to be a part of it, right? There are people that I respect and I will still defend. If people attack them, unfairly, I will still stand out and defend. Because I have friends there, I have people that I, have love and respect for. Our personal relationship will never be ruined because, we are not in the same camp. If that makes me look like I'm, part of a sleeper cell, great. I don't worry about that. But I can separate my personal feelings from issues. So when that is the case, now we are at this point, and people are saying the same thing. Or Dabo contested 5. Okay, let's put it this way. I've said this before, I'll say it again. From 1996, whenever votes are cast in the Gambia, Nico polls are closed, Soldier Motor Lekanan, and they collect the ballots and take it to the counting centers, which is usually the commissioner's office. And nobody except the soldiers will be in that truck. Go on Wikipedia, go on Google, go on, even use AI. Ask, what were the observations of election observers in the Gambia between 1996 to 2016? Every single one of them was negative. They didn't think it was free and fair. Every single one. And when people said, oh, like they just crying victim. But it was during those times people got angry. Men got freedom. Yeah, when you don't know history, you just forget before they, you just start making noise. Those were times Panderi was keep saying, Dabo should not be leader because, all these things, they're still in the elections and he's sitting there just being timid, he needs to get out. He has the command of the people. Now, Mr. Dafin Dako, I'm not going to walk over the dead body of one Gambian to go to State House. It's not worth it. All those things happened in the past, but people just want to bury it. It doesn't matter. Yeah, he contested all those elections and he never won them, so he's unwinnable. Okay? That's your opinion, if that is the yardstick now. One variable change in 2016. Let's say 2, but the most important variable was the fact that on-the-spot counting was never done in Gambian elections on the agenda until 2016. He lost. If you think that's not significant, or they burned some of those voters' cards that were at the APRC bureau, okay, that contributed to it. Or there was a coalition, yes, that also contributed to it, but a variable change. Imagine even if there was a coalition and the soldiers still decide we're going to take the ballots to the counting centers. For West Coast region, we'll take it to Brigame. It doesn't matter if they are cast in Fonyi or in Bijilo. For, North Bank region, we'll bring it all the way from Farafenni to Kerawan, from Bara to Kerawan. And none of your agents are going to be in that truck. You think if that happened, your agent will still not be here? So that's an important factor that people don't want to consider. But that's by the way. Number 2, UDP never said no. In the coalition talks, we're not going to go. This agreement will come, this is the process we want to follow. These are the modalities for the coalition building. That's where the disagreement will come, like NAD. A lot of things happened in NAD. But one of them was the disagreement could don't register NAD as a political party. Because when you do, at that time, the law was if you change your political party, it will trigger a by-election. They registered NAD. Halifa Sallah lost his seat. Hamad Ba lost his seat. They had to go to by-elections. Halifa won and came back. Hamad Ba lost his seat. He never went back to the National Assembly again. That was a point of disagreement. So no more Bafala sign, there's coalition talks. The expectation is that when you come to discussions, you come with a proposal for that discussion. Everybody has their own views of how should we unite the country into a coalition. More opinion on that. Near DOI invite, they will come with a proposal. Near GDC invite, they will come with their proposal. Near UMC invite, they will come with their proposal. Near UDP invite, they will come with their proposal. All these parties have proposals. So people deliberately trying to twist history because of UMC, UDP, if it is not party-led until that year. Since 2006, when NAD was being formed, UDP's proposal was that. Look around us, look around the world. Whenever there's coalitions, the party in the opposition with the largest number gets the support of the parties that don't have a chance of winning, so that they can all unite their resources together and then get that party to win. So when it wins, then we can talk about power sharing. That was not accepted in 2006. It was not accepted in 2011, leading to Hamad Ba and PDIS forming the United Front. And NAD was 2006 as well. So those things happened. When 2011 came, UDP said, look, this is our position again. So if they say, you know, like if you're coming to us without the proposal, hey, UDP, you should leave, they're not going to come to the table. They know this is our position. It makes logical sense. Now tell us why it doesn't make sense. Nico party led is not a good move. Tell us why it is not a good move. Oh, because it needs to be democratic. All parties are the same. They have no national structures, no regional structures, not even a ward structure. Because those parties should have the same say as parties that have established over 40 years. An example of the dollar, even US Young, they have the Electoral College. But a state like California, which is 10 times bigger than a state like, I don't know, let's say Iowa, they don't have the same number of delegates when they are selecting the candidate for the Democrat or Republican Party. They don't have the same number of delegates, and nobody is going to say that's not democratic. People even say, you know, Electoral College is not democratic, but, you know, that's a discussion for another time. But it is proportional representation. Any of those parties, file a candidate for all the constituencies in the country, they will not be able to file more than 2 or 3 candidates. But you want those people to go and find delegates from those constituencies that they have no representation in. So naturally, if we go to, you know, polling and say, let's do a delegate-style coalition building, if we make it proportional, UDP will emerge on top. So how do we finagle that to make sure everybody gets the equal share? Henry Gomez gets 10 delegates, UDP gets 10 delegates. The lady Cheyasin Seka and the guy that, you know, they are forming a political party together, just registered. People had, I don't even know their name. Those also get 10. To do what? That's not to say that they don't have a right to seek the presidency of the Gambia. They have every right. It's just like saying somebody has power and somebody has authority. Those two are different. It's like Barrow has power, but his bodyguards have more authority in certain aspects. Like if he wants to go to a certain place and they feel like this is not safe, they say, no, Mr. President, you cannot go here because we cannot secure it for you. Despite all his power, he cannot go against that because those are the experts. Then if you go here, we cannot secure you, so we're not letting you go. That's going to fall on us. If anything happens, it's going to be our fault. Because we should have done our security assessment, which we did, and we know it's not safe, so we're not letting you go. With all his power, he cannot go. It happened here after the elections when Trump wanted to go to the Capitol. What happened? He wanted to go see the protesters. And the Secret Service said, no, sir, you cannot go because it's not safe. The place has not been secured. They put him in his car and took him back to the White House. Despite all his power, so power and authority are not the same. That doesn't mean that it's not democratic. It's the same, you know, like Muslim 50-50, fine. As human beings, we all have the same rights, equal rights. But when it comes to responsibilities, you know, there are certain things that needs a woman to do and certain things that needs a man to do. It's the same thing when it comes to politics, when it comes to business. Even in business, when you have somebody with 50+1 shares, they have the casting vote when it comes to decision. So why do we feel like we need to separate human emotions, human realities away from our politics? I saw the post that Melvin made and I made a comment on it. You know, and what he says I agree to. When marriages are built on convenience, it's just a matter of time before there's an ideological difference emerges. And when that happens, it's going to collapse. So UDP proposing we want a party led. That doesn't mean that this is set and sealed. If that was the case, 2006, they would not even participate in the NAD discussion. 2011, they would not participate. But they accord that and see, okay, what do they have that could be next best to a party led? If it appeals to us, we will join. If it doesn't, then we will not. And that's also a right that they reserve. But all of a sudden, everybody is out here, oh, UDP cannot lead it. Why? Because Dabo is unwinnable. If we even form a coalition and put him on top of that coalition, he is not going to be able to win. So basically, it's like, okay, UDP, you selected your leader. We cannot do anything about it. But if you want to be a part of this coalition, select somebody else and point to them as the person you want to be the contender for the coalition. So if you tell somebody, okay, you did your primaries or whatever UDP does, you selected your flag bearer, this is the guy you want to present to the Gambian people in 2026 as presidential candidate. Fine. In your opinion, that guy cannot win. That's why you all left UDP and took with you whoever thinks that same thing. So what is going to happen now, if you tell UDP, come to the table to coalition building, but you cannot put your name forward when it comes to selecting the leader of the coalition, and UDP agrees to that, what do you think is going to happen to the people who still remain in the UDP? Is that not going to lead to voter apathy? Oh, you know, I'm not going to use those levels because I don't think everybody who left did so because, you know, they betrayed the UDP. And I don't think everybody on that side betrayed the UDP. But also, don't think that everybody who stayed behind is part of a cult, that they cannot think for themselves either. That's the sticking point that everybody needs to understand. You know, let's accord each other some respect. So, you know, that's what is going to happen. You know, if to impose somebody on the UDP, kabu UDP balantole radi function kafolo, say na to ko UDP ni UDP dabe kalaje, but it'll left them in the UDP kunko de tamino. The UDP sondawal. UDP supporters will just back our answer until that. So the 20% or whatever percent you think UDP has will now dwindle to maybe 10%. Because this generated a lot of anger, but people are refusing to see that. This whole split thing, it generated a lot of anger among you. I don't need to tell you that. We see it online every day. So if you're inviting UDP to the table and saying, hey, let us form a coalition, but your candidate cannot lead that coalition, or whoever leads that coalition cannot come from UDP, then why do you need them at the table? That is the one question that nobody can answer so far. Why is it so important to have UDP at the table if this is your approach to building a coalition? Because you know there's no way in hell, okay, boys of Jahannam glass, UDP will not accept that. You know that very well, 100%. Unless you have an ulterior motive, you know that is never going to happen. So why are you insisting that they be a part of the coalition? Because you don't want to budge from that. Oh, let's negotiate and meet in the middle ground. Then don't say stuff like you cannot lead it. And why are you so focused on somebody leading the coalition anyway? Are we more concerned about who is going to lead, or are we more concerned about reforms in the country? One of the reasons, you know, people started attacking coalition 2016. I remember the early days when Halifa was on Kerfadu. People say, oh, coalition failed us, 2016 failed us, blah, blah, blah. Halifa said, no, we delivered the mandate. And I example of one deal, quoting people, so we achieved our goal, which was to remove Jammeh. And I'm 100% agree. That was the goal of coalition 2016, remove Jammeh. That was it. If you look at all the talk about coalition 2016 agreement, arrangement, signed, not signed, the only thing they talk about is how to come together and what is going to happen after Jammeh is removed at the executive level. Nothing was talked about at the National Assembly level. Nothing was talked about at the local government level. The entire focus was removing Jammeh. And Halifa is 100% right. That was the purpose of it. It was achieved. What comes after that was discussed when the elections were conducted and election results declared. Adama Barrow won. They went to work. Started by talking about the think tank, how we're going to set it up, accountability commissions and all this. That came, and they all agreed on so many of them: Constitutional Review Commission, Janet Commission, all those things were done between that time when we had the impasse and, Barrow swearing in and beyond. But that goal was achieved. So now when it comes to executive functions and, power sharing and all that, DOI has a different ideology of how a government should be managed or run. UDP has a different ideology. This is why these are all political parties and they are not in one camp. GDC has a different ideology of how a government should be run. So once Yahya Jammeh was gone, now we sat down, let's discuss the business of running the government. Obviously, those ideological differences are going to come out. To start with, National Assembly elections that were not discussed prior to Yahya Jammeh being defeated. Those discussions started after that. The tactical alliance that everybody's saying, is the reason why the coalition broke down. So it's basically going back to the same narrative. Come to the table, but don't come with a proposal. We have a proposal already for you. If you want to accept it, accept it. Or let's float all independent candidates so that they can help the coalition government. No, now that we remove Jammeh, APRC is still a threat because Jammeh is gone, but APRC is here. And even now, almost 10 years later, APRC is still here. So if we go independent, and then they also have their candidates, they are going to be the majority in the National Assembly. Fonyi already has 5. So if you have all these independent candidates, how are you going to manage that majority and, in National Assembly? So there was a technical issue there. But not to get into the details of that. What I'm trying to say is, if we focus on one element only, we're going to fall out. It doesn't matter how you cut it. In 2016, the element was removing Jammeh. Now, the element is who is going to lead. After we agree on that, favorable, unfavorable, it doesn't matter. Once Barrow is defeated now, we have problems. Immediately after that person is sworn in, those problems will come to the forefront. And then we are into this back and forth again. And what happens? Political power consolidation. It starts again, right from the back. So what about a simple proposal? Since we all have different ideas on how to run a government, bring your proposal. Let's look at it, I think I read today on Standard or somewhere, or Foria, that Halifa is planning on, coming up with a modality for building coalition. Great, he's respectable, and whatever he has to say, we will listen to it. And I'm sure it's going to have some valid points in it. And then, when the discussions move on, they can iron it out and see where they stand. But that is a no-go area if you want to make coalition building all entirely about who is going to lead it and nothing for policies. That leadership issue, if that's what you want, go form your own coalition and we'll form our own, trajectory on the other side. But all these complaints about, term limits, new constitution. UDP already promised you there'll be the CRC draft coming back for people to vote on it. So let's say, for example, Mama Kande says to UDP, I will endorse you. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But we want to make sure that the Janet Commission report is implemented. We want to make sure that the Jammeh assets that were misappropriated are also investigated. We want to make sure that there's a new constitution. We want to make sure there's term limits and that there's 50+1. If you can promise that, we can support you. And UDP says yes. But then how do you make sure they do that? Because once they're in power, they're in power. That's what happened with Barrow. Like once he got into power, all those noble ideas of, a think tank, of consulting each other with ministerial appointments, those were all noble ideas. But now he is an executive president. He is empowered by the Constitution to do what the executive president is empowered to do. He doesn't need to consult anybody. Part of the reason why the Doi folks didn't want any cabinet positions, they want to go to the National Assembly. Because the president has executive powers, he can act on them anytime he wants, and it will not be a violation of the Constitution. So if UDP says we will do all these things, it's just on paper. How do we enforce it? That comes stage 2. Since we are yielding the executive position to you, for you to fill that executive position, National Assembly, we want to make sure that you don't have a supermajority. So if you want to do something that we feel is not right, we can rally our supporters or our members in the National Assembly along with the other parties to stop you. For example, you want to retain Sidi Mukhtar Toure as IGP. But now the law says he has to be confirmed in the National Assembly. We're going to reject him. Go pick somebody else. You give yourself that power. So we will yield the executive to you. You can form your cabinet. You know, the policies are new constitution, term limits, certain appointments have to be approved by the National Assembly, blah, 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 blah. That's for you to implement. But in order to make sure we also have some control over what you do in the executive, we are only allowing you to have, let's say, 19 seats in the National Assembly. The rest will go to everybody else, however they want to divvy it up. So that way, the majority is in opposition to the party that is in power. So if UDP is in power, the majority of the National Assembly will go to somebody else because they are not allowed to have more than 17, 18, 19 seats, at least for those first 5 years. So that way they can have some control over the executive. So now if you don't implement the Ghana Commission report, you bring your budget, we're not going to approve it. Because we told you to do this, you refuse to do it, now it's not going to happen. We want you to bring back the new constitution, you're still refusing to. You bring your budget, we say we're not going to approve it, now you have to yield. That gives you some degree of control. It is not all up to them. And when it comes to the local government also, the same thing. At least for the first 5 years, this is a compromise we are reaching. After 5 years, everybody can go their separate ways because now we have 50+1, we have a new constitution, and we have, you know, so many changes that we want. Now we can all go on our own. Everybody go test your strength. When the first round is done, nobody has 50+1, we go to round 2. And when that round 2 comes, only 2 people are gonna go. The incumbent, who won, you know, maybe 48 or 49%, and then the person who won maybe 30%. These are the 2 people who are gonna go into the runoff. So when they move onto the runoff, the rest of the parties can see which one they want to support and out of those 2. It's just simple logic. But no, we hate this guy so much, we don't want him anywhere near the presidency. That's all this discussion is about. Completely. Why does it matter so much who lives without any reason? Just because you got angry, and then you're accusing other people of being angry, like gaslighting them. If you're telling me you can come to the table, but you're only going to be a spectator, I'm like, I don't want to come to your table. I have something to say. You don't want to listen to it? Fine. You go ahead and do what you want to do. I don't want to be a part of it. Everybody has a right to that. That's just basic human instinct. Expecting people to act like they're saints or gods or angels, that's not going to cut it. When you know that somebody has at least a solid 20% of the voters behind them, you approach them with something that they can accept. Not outright standing on grounds that, you know, if you come here, you can only be A, B, or C. You cannot seek the leadership of this, you know, coalition. It shouldn't be about leadership. Whether one wants to run as a candidate, like I said, whether you have 1%, 0.1%, it's your choice because the Constitution gives you the right to want to be president of the country. So nobody can stop you from that. That's a personal decision you make. Whether people will accept you or not, that's up to the people. And whatever their reason is, we cannot fault them for it. So if Dabo decides, personally, at a personal level, I want to run again, who is going to stop him? If Banky decides he's going to run again, who's going to stop him? But will the people support him? Will the people vote for him? That's up to the people. And if your observation is they are not going to, fine. So how do we come together and, you know, make sure that everybody is included without being belligerent on one side and saying we insist that this is what it's going to be or it's not going to happen? And you expect people to come to the table with that? So when we say these people misinterpret or they don't want to be a part of any coalition because they think if they are not, that creates an opportunity for them. That's in your head. We have no ulterior motives. All we are saying is this is unacceptable. We're not going to be a part of it. So basically what is being asked is UDP coming to have a spectator role in this coalition. I'm not saying that's what the officials of any coalition discussion are saying. That's one of the parties to any potential coalition is saying. So the other alternative is if UDP decides they're going to go alone and don't want to be, that's going to force the other parties to say, let's come together and unite since we cannot bring UDP on board and then strengthen our numbers. When people see that unity, they might vote for us. That's still a logic that you can apply instead of insisting and, making this whole environment toxic. That's what I don't get. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. You lost faith in the UDP. You believe Dabo cannot win. You believe UDP supporters are too toxic for anybody to listen to them. So you go form your own movement. I'm not angry at that. I'm not mad at that. We all have different levels of tolerance and endurance and, perspectives. Fine, go ahead. That's your right. It's your prerogative. Form your coalition or form your party and canvass for votes. And then leave these people that you think are toxic cult members to do their own thing. Sell your message well. If there are people still in that cult who feel like, you know what, this is the right thing to do, we're going to leave and join them. That's to your advantage. But you cannot go when people already felt like, okay, this is a betrayal, this has been a long plot that you have been, staging for the longest time. I'm not saying that's the truth. I'm saying that's the perspective. When people have been saying that this whole time, and then suddenly you come out and say, okay, we from our party, and the guy that we said was supposed to be UDP leader is now our leader, so now UDP has to come and join us, and that guy is still going to lead. Who do you think is going to accept that anywhere in the world? So this is where we stand, and this is how discussions get ruined every single time because people don't want to focus on the issues. They don't want to be rational in their thinking. People don't want to be logical. They don't want to be reasonable. It's just everybody's ego gets in the way. For me, I don't try to engage in fights. I run away from them. If I am the problem, I remove myself from that issue. Whatever you're having, now, 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 will do whatever you want. So since we are the problem, people in the cult, with our unwinnable candidate, leave us out and go do your thing. If you think that's being unreasonable, and you saying that we can come but only be spectators is not unreasonable, I don't know how to help you. The same thing we were running away from when all these camps were emerging is the same thing that is happening again. You take a position and people tell you this is going to lead down this path. You say it's not going to. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. This is what's right, this is what's right. And then the split happened. Is that unity or is that disunity? It's disunity. So now you want to unite people, but what do you start it off with? There are people you disagree with, fine. There are people who will lash out because they felt betrayed. I'm not saying you did that, but we all react differently. They will lash out. I'm not saying it's excusable or not. When you're dealing with those people, call them out, tag them, and say what you want to say to them. But don't drag everybody else into it. How unfortunate it is that all of a sudden, Mr. Dabo is the problem. And people who we thought in the past respected him are suddenly the ones saying exactly the same thing that people on the opposite side were saying that we were trying to defend him against. You don't have to like the man. You don't have to even, I don't know, you don't have to like him at all. But consider the fact that there are people who still do. And some of those people are people who respect you, who care about you, and there are people who you have good relations with. I never blocked anybody on Facebook. The only person I did was because, it's one of these Egyptian people. He thinks when he is talking with me, he can insult the prophet. Now, if you're not doing that through me, I'll block you. If you want an exchange where we can have a reasonable discussion, you see my perspective, I see your perspective, hopefully we understand each other, even though we're not going to accept each other's perspective, that's fine. But if you think you're going to rile me up and make me angry by insulting somebody I respect and care about and look up to, then I'm not going to react to that. That's unrealistic. So whatever your beef is with whoever is in the UDP, when they say something, call them out. Be man enough. Like I was watching the brunch earlier, the guy was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna name names. Everybody knows who you're talking about. Just call them." You know. So basically, what I was commenting on Melville's thing is agreements built on goodwill rather than enforceable rules, they inevitably collapse. That is the truth. So we'll look at on coalition 2016. It was built on goodwill, gentleman's agreement. But none of it was enforceable. So when political ideologies started showing up, the differences, it collapsed. And in his note, he said, the only credible path forward is a properly negotiated unity government, anchored in law rather than personalities. Such a government must rest on a written agreement that defines leadership selection, term limits, policy priorities, and dispute resolution mechanisms. Policy priorities. So that's what I highlighted from his comment, Kavayango. This is what I've been talking about this whole time. That let each party go out, assess their strengths. UDP were in 2016. Kabri Molan leaders will be more strong. Because coalition talks. AGM Kobadamboyongo Talita coalition Kachadla until we're going to introduce Adam around the country since that UDP is still here. But Adam every stop. Dabo Londola si mile 2, Gambia Kuala si mile 2, Ya Jamesa Sorono, Barata, Londo Sorono, and Remotion Dabo Dingoleti, blah 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 blah, the entire country introducing your candidate. So the same thing. We are getting up to 2026. Instead of coming on Facebook making a lot of noise, go test your strength. Natra tonya patriotism. Banku kano wala ben mol nganior. Ngana banko ban because I still remember kaman kesela tilno. Teni mol ya kacha ya jube. Ita load la mendol. Ya menda nyol taraki ene afro ko kontal UDP le mutandal bol manda al support. When you go to communities, they'll be honest with you. They'll tell you this is what we stand for. So you gauge and go with your record keepers. When you come back here, realize, okay, I only have 1% support in this country. There's no way I can win an election this year. I need to build myself better. Then therefore, you know what, I'm going to withdraw because I know I cannot win. I feel like I'm in Minneapolis, yeah, like very recently, like less than 2 weeks ago. Republican governor who wants to run to be a governor in Minnesota, under these conditions, a Republican cannot win here. So I'm withdrawing. I'm not going to run for governor anymore. So the same thing. Mo beta e banko ya yafumole yon natal de kuro felen ko nga patio lo pral yon support. O san banko wol tafla yon ko bal support la tend atroted. Maybe do back but a lot of them will not. Based on your reception, if found you can feel for yourself for ni mo le support la for and support. The natra banko ko le to wulinde wole sula ya ho fen ko ha na nyon ko jubele janembe ko jamaati nyala je ma modo jube me yalan ko their views are aligned with our views ni la mere nyal kilintale nga wal sambentu ya ndal fanara ngam fan topoto na amuru ko te sanjulu ñaar. That is the honest thing to do. So ningu kera pati jama bije we have 23 political parties. I'm sure at least 20 of those parties will be by the there is no possible way we can win an election in the Gambia. So let's decide. Are you going to support Doi? Yes. Go to Halifa and go, look, we assess our strength. We know until we cannot win an election. We come to endorse you, but here is our terms of endorsement if you happen to win. If you feel like UDP has a better chance, go to UDP. GDC is also making momentum. Go to, GDC. If you feel like Barrow is the person, go to Barrow. Tell them, like we formed our political party, but we realized we cannot win. And we've seen that you've done A, B, or C. That appeals to us, so we want to support you and be part of your camp. Let's cut it down. Let's bring it down. But if nobody wants to do that, just being on Facebook saying high-sounding words with no support behind you, and then when it comes to coalition, you go, until Bay, we are all Gambians, we have the same right, we need 10 delegates. When you cannot even find those delegates. Are you helping or are you, just making things more complicated? Near more in Gambia B, who has a very realistic chance of winning the election in the Gambia. They will say UDP, DOI, and maybe one other party. So why do we have all these multitudes of parties in the country? So mobe ta yela sembo jube ebe men nola ni aje kon tata nyin keno out of patriotism banko kono kam ko mtal nganda bon ni jere makar la support wo kare fane ba support la mon dalila la kan yo fa look dal ni support lafta la ni keta president because executive dal tam men dia be wal appoint la ngal ne be la mol appoint la ba lafta la ka make sure ko Gambia election ka batal 50+1 del sur the new constitution about. So basically 50+1 term limits, those are all in the CRC draft. So promise ko ni nada CRC draft will come back to the National Assembly. But the finance minister mu patin dungal la after le yem back ninga na candidate on the Combo South alia support draft na the National Assembly sa we can start forming our party out of patriotism. And see if that is not acceptable to them. Just simple logical things. We cannot even, start discussions around that because everybody just comes belligerent. Boom, I'm standing here and I'm not going to move. UDP cannot lead any coalition here because they will lose. Why? What is your reason for that? Like I said, there are things happening on my side that I don't agree to and I will not encourage it. In fact, I condemn it. But there are things happening on the other side also directed to this side that are unsavory, unhelpful to anybody. Human beings are human beings. We will react to things. So if we all agree that this is what we want, this is what is best for the country, let us understand that. And then we talk to each other like people who all care about the country. But you cannot put yourself on this pedestal country, I care about the country, these other people don't. The only person we can say that about is Adama Barrow. Because we are seeing what he is doing with our economy. We are seeing what he is doing with his responsibilities. So hopefully the people coming to build a new coalition, they will come with very reasonable proposals. And then everybody, like I said, UDP, Niye Kumande Gawale, Samakat Balangoko, Kawanya Balanga, make Samakat Hamlumo, Janing Moye Kuman, they don't go kill the ballot. Remember that's the case on now, but now you come to down. That's UDP's position. They will show up. You say, oh, this is our coalition proposal. Here is how we plan to select leader. Here are the priority areas. And they will say, okay, no, we don't agree to that. Here is our counter proposal. Okay, we'll look over that. Let's meet again in 2 weeks. Well, we looked over your proposals. Here is what we don't agree with. Because when you say party-led, it disenfranchises this party, that other party. And I don't think they're going to agree to come to the table with that. So let's reach a compromise so that we can bring A, B, and C parties to our table also. Well, this is our reason for saying party-led, but bring them to the table. Let's see what they have to say about our proposal. Okay, let's come to another meeting in 2 weeks. You start building little by little until you get a consensus. But if that person comes and says, yeah, we want to be a part of it, but these people cannot lead. Like, I'm not going to say anything if this person is in the room. Okay, I'm going to leave. You guys can talk what you want to say. I don't want to be part of this. If you don't understand my perspective, all we're doing is shouting at each other when we all want the same thing. At least we hope we all want the same thing, which is for the Gambia to move from the trajectory it is on to a more, stable one. Just because there is no medicine in the hospital. Police will have enough training, enough equipment, enough resources to investigate and bring those people to justice. You will not have a government where the more government support like Kumofo. So the bar government opposite government word exactly the same thing for Yamre Yaso. All those things are happening in that country. So why can't we just, for God's sake, we are not going to agree on everything. That is not possible anywhere. If it is Islam, you have at least 4 schools of thought because they have different interpretations of different aspects of the religion. And following any of them, you are still on the path of Islam. So why do we expect that we should all be in the same camp? I'm not expecting, we're just going to wake up and people stop attacking each other online. No. You choose your battles. And I try my best to be responding to people that I feel like have a voice in the organizations that they are in. Or at least they are prominent there. But what I've been increasingly observing is let's build a brand by making UDP look bad. We're going to counter that. You may not agree with UDP, you might think that they will do bad things when they come, you might think they cannot even win, fine. That's all opinions. At the end of the day, the votes will be the only thing that counts. But until we do that, let's just accord each other some respect. The people who attack you, the people who, insult you, like I said, there are things happening from my side that I don't agree with. I don't endorse them, I don't support them, I don't engage them. But there are things happening on the other side too. Let's not pretend like they're not. Who started what? It's not like we are dealing with 5-year-olds. He started it. No, he started it. If you want to get involved, get involved. But don't paint everybody with the same brush. But when people in positions of authority, like even all this tribalism, like, because I know people are bigoted. But when you have people in authority, like say Umbalonyol, many are their president, they have the president's ear. Sidin Janyo, Hamad Banyo, when they say tribalist stuff, we come out and condemn it. That's different than somebody opening their Facebook live like me, saying whatever they want. That's just their opinion. Am I going to listen to them? No. I scroll past them because it has no bearing on me. But people are in authority, positions of power, or they have influence over power. When they say certain things, it's worth responding to. That's how I select my battles. So when you come to new parties like UMC and people like MC Cham, there are no backbenchers there. When they're coming and saying stuff like that, what is the problem? It doesn't matter who what kind of coalition you have, as long as you put him as the leader, that coalition is going to fail. We have a right to demand explanation for that. And it cannot be, oh, he never won an election in this country. Because the only simple answer to that is that no election was ever fair on the IJAM. Don't take it from me, go Google it. Look up Wikipedia. The information keeps changing, but that information always stays. From 1996 to 2016, no election was fair in that country. Every time people vote, they carry the votes to a counting station at the commissioner's office. Only soldiers. Soldiers may know, even Babukar Jara has no control over them. They only respond, the answer to your agenda. So you think that's fair? If you think that's fair, okay, let's say 2026, when votes are cast, Adam Barrow can do the same thing. Take the voting ballots and go count them in Mankamangunda on military trucks. If you can promise that that is fair, then we will talk and say, okay, let somebody else lead. So we cannot rewrite history. Let us assess things. We all want the same thing. But if we cannot even agree on that basic fact code, we want the same thing for a better Gambia. If we're looking at each other as enemies, like these people want what's good for the Gambia, these people don't, we're never going to agree on anything. It's all going to be just this shouting match. Everybody has some merits on their side. Even if it is going to be because they have one vote, that's a merit. So let's look at each other like that and stop all this nonsense like I'm on this side and this is it forever. Like I said, we will not get involved in people's personal feuds, but political parties are based on images. It's image building. So I know I'm living in America, you understand it. When people say, oh, you have to apologize for 9/11 because you are a Muslim, you know the kind of Islam you practice doesn't teach that. You know the kind of Islam you practice abhors the things that people from ISIS do. So how are you responsible for that? You're not. But when people start attacking, how do you feel? Being a Muslim, when you hear people saying that, or they see you around town, wearing your hijab, are you from Islam, boy? People who don't know anything about it start making up nonsense. How does that make you feel? Religion is then the same as politics, but it's something you choose. It's by choice. So if you're a part of it and you're trying everything you can to make things better and you know what your contribution is and what your intentions are, and people sitting out there going to look for the worst of the worst comments on social media by people who are unidentified and attributing it to you. You just want to sit, and fold your hands and do nothing about it? No. If you're having a beef with somebody, name them. Call them out and say, this is what you said and I don't like it. Let's be honest and open with each other. But if everybody knows who you're talking about and you start beating about the bush, that people cannot even respect you on that. So let's understand that we can all build our brand Like Youssou Ndour and Kinelam said, you know, like, do what you feel like is right to move you forward. Let these other people do what they feel like is right to move forward. December is 9 months away. That's a lifetime in politics. It's not far, but it's not, you know, tomorrow either. Let the people who are sincere, have the best intentions of the country, lead these talks about coalition. And let the leadership decide what they're going to agree to and what they're not going to agree to. Until who are the surrogates here, let's not poison the well like we did with the whole UDP flag bearer thing that led to this split. The same thing is about to happen with coalition building. And just for the record, UDP is not against coalitions. The modalities is what they will object to, and they'll have a counter proposal. And the people on the other side who don't agree to that proposal can counter their proposal. And then that's how negotiations happen. Just like it happens in any war situation. This is our demands, no, we cannot do that. This is also our demands, no, we cannot do that. So let the people who are serious about this, who know what they are doing, let them take the lead and let us sit down and watch them come out and say, everything I said here, I'm saying it on my own behalf. I'm trying to explain the logic of what our advocacy is on that position. That is not any UDP official position. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. When people who are sincere, who are committed to seeing this change and are patriotic and have proven it, let them come up and say, we are initiating coalition talks around this, you know, agenda A, B, and C, and here's the modalities that we're trying to implement. We invited the parties, and they objected to this modality or that one, and they, you know, gave us a counter proposal. We are working on how to fit that into it. Let them take the lead. Sometimes that's all we have to do. Let the leaders take the leadership role, and we sit and watch them, you know, cook something up and bring it out for us, for all of our benefit. But when that becomes something too much to ask for, we just poison the well, and somehow, you know, that seeps into the discussions. And before you know it, like I said, I think people are setting up the stage that, you know, whenever anything fails in that country, blame UDP. It is January. We don't have elections until 2026. What we are telling you is UDP is not going to be a part of any coalition process that says that they cannot put their name forward to be contenders for the leadership of that coalition. UDP will not be a part of any of that. So if that is what you're insisting on, go ahead and do it. Don't blame UDP tomorrow and say, oh, they're the reason we don't have a coalition. No, they are telling you from now, if we're going to be a part of the coalition, we will have our own proposals on the modalities of that coalition. But when it's all said and done, and 𝒂𝒏 we are going to put our candidate name forward who we want to lead that coalition, and then people can vote on it, whatever the mechanism of voting is. But if you say we cannot do that, that is it. Anybody who says at Dabijel, try to unify those people. Don't come here and say, oh, we didn't have it because UDP. No, they're already telling you what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. That should be very simple and clear. So if you are really intent on building this coalition, instead of having 23 parties in the coalition, try to unify the other 22 and leave the one party to go alone because they don't agree with you. You still have, you know, a unified front. That might even force them to come. So that's the bottom line. Let the leadership people decide what they want to do. Let the people who want to build coalitions, whether they are NGOs, independent bodies, private citizens, you know, civil service organizations, or even other political parties, come up with their proposals. They will not come on social media. They will go and reach out to the leadership of the other parties. Let them do their work. Let us be spectators on the side, selling our candidates, selling our program agendas. If in the exchanges, you know, we, you know, offend each other, go after the person who offended you. Duke it out with them. And keep everybody else out of it. This is how we can move forward. It's a simple proposal. But when you have a disagreement with Nata, you start going on social media, UDP called then, UDP, when you never had it from anybody in leadership. And when the same happens on the other side, oh, this is not the party position, this that individual's position. Why is that rule not applying to the UDP? It's constant toxicity, like, and people think I don't get angry like that. Because I know what I have control over and what I don't have control over. That I don't have any control over, so I'm not going to waste my energy being angry about it. Once in a while, I'll be at Adam Obaro because I know his decisions have real life impact. If I can't deal with you, I just ignore you. It's that simple. Anyway, this is probably the longest Facebook video I've done. na loja fasila ko to ala baraka